Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. My email is still tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's still in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, a homecoming of sorts. I am a native Long Islander, and this is the Franck Muller Long Island Imperial Tourbillon, or perhaps I should say Long Island, as they would say it out on Long Island. The watch harks back to the spirit of the flappers and the roaring 20s, the jazz age. This watch, a timepiece inspired by that period, but very much of modern fit, finish, and quality, is also of a modern sizing sensibility. In white gold, gray gold, more on that in a moment, you can see it's quite broad across, 32.5 across, not including the crown, 49.3 from lug tip to lug tip, 11.6 millimeters thick, and then we have a spacing of 24 millimeters between the lugs. So by the standards of non-round watches, this one is quite large, and on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you could see that there's not much real estate left. It's pretty much all the way across. So if your wrist is my size, you could wear this watch, but if your wrist is any larger than mine, you're going to want to seek a smaller Franck Muller. Now the watch is thin, you can see, with a rounded case flank and a relatively low set profile. Under 12 millimeters, it will slide underneath the dress cuff, but it is broad. So you're going to want a wrist my size or larger to get the most of this. You'll also appreciate that the watch is overall broad but thin. That goes for the case and the strap as well. Here we have large rectangular scale alligator leather. It's black with a matte finish. We have a sheer cut side, a monotone stitch, and you can see how flat it is. This is a watch box by Jean Rousseau strap. Jean Rousseau, the OEM supplier for FP Journe and De Bethune. We rely on them for our custom straps, and this is a beautiful one. Gator on the top, calfskin on the bottom, and you can see the use of pull tab spring bars so you can remove the strap without tools. We have a simple Franck Muller lacquered white gold pin buckle, and I mentioned gray gold a minute ago, but what is gray gold? Gray gold is a type of white gold that's white all the way through and never needs to be rhodium plated. It is, in short, the good stuff. It's what Grubel, JLC, Rolex, and De Bethune use. It's also what Franck Muller has chosen to use here. While this model line, the Long Island, came out in 2000, the movement inside came out in 2001. Now you know the timeline for the watch. We may as well discuss some of the elements that make this very much a product of modern watchmaking. Starting with this monoblock case, which is expensive and complex to fabricate. So you can see that the case flank and the bezel, it's all one. There's no seam between them. They're one piece. As a result, everything loads through the back. We also have lugs, which, as you can see, have a sharp break from the case band. These have every appearance of being hand welded, which is a slow-going, old-school way of making a lug, and welcome here. We also have underneath pull-tab spring bars for quick release. You see screws, but this is not a screw and bar set system. Rolling around, there is a wonderfully shaped and cambered crystal that's flush all the way around, and you can see not only is it non-round in profile, but it is cambered and curved across the top. This is a very expensive type of sapphire to make and then to fit in place correctly without evidence of adhesive seeping in or susceptibility to water intrusion. So this is a very complex way to fabricate a crystal in a case. Now on the back, you can see there is a curvature to the case back as well as the crystal used back there. So when it's on your wrist, that curvature mitigates some of the fit issues. A little bit of irony, Franck Muller, which always boasts master of complications on the reverse of even its most simple watches, here makes no particular boast on a watch that is a tourbillon. I would expect some mention of mastery of complications here, but well, you'll find that on three-hand automatic soprod power Franck Muller products. You will not find it on the tourbillon. Another element that makes this a very modern watch is the prolific use of superluminova. So we'll take a look, and as you can see, this watch is explosively bright. I mentioned that it is inspired by Long Island, and we are speaking of the Long Island of the 1920s. Think the Great Gatsby, East Egg, West Egg, jaunts in from the city for weekend parties, that sort of thing. And because Art Deco didn't really get its start until 1925 and didn't become mainstream until the 30s, the style of the Jazz Age was more Art Nouveau than Art Deco, and that really inspires the hands as well as the numeral fonts used on this dial. Now we'll take another look. You can see that there's a very very subtle rosette pattern on this dial. So it's super subtle, but there is a sort of guilloche type of finish. What really sets this apart is the use of a flying tourbillon front and center. So it's a flying tourbillon because there's no upper bridge to block your view, and you can see that it has the Franck Muller logo on it. You can see it also on the crown, and then it's been beautifully hand engraved. You can see the screw heads with black polished heads, chamfered slots in circumference, a big slow beating flying tourbillon that acts as the seconds hand for the dial, beating away at 18,000 vibrations per hour. Turning it all over, you can see that it has been freehand engraved on both sides. This is the FM 2001-2 manual wind with 60 hours of power reserve, 21 pivot joules. It says adjusted to all positions, which I interpret to mean at the very least the high horology and chronometer standard of 5, possibly the absolute standard of 6. And there's a lot to love. No two of these are going to be exactly alike because the freehand engraving process is done unguided with a burin and sometimes a small mallet, so the result is always going to be imperfect and individual, the way human work as opposed to CNC or spark erosion work is perfect. Human work is always imperfect. So no two exactly alike, each a work of art. Taking a quick look, you can see the edge of every bridge is beautifully mirror polished and beveled. And then we have the same treatment, internal bevel, for all of the jewel sinks. Take a quick look and you can see that the barrel, which is hidden underneath the drivetrain, that too has been freehand engraved. And that there's a lovely flow from the barrel at the top through the drivetrain down to the tourbillon mechanism. Gorgeous stuff. And again, each example a work of art. Once again, we have black polished screws, and they have been chamfered in their slots and circumference. So each screw is itself a work of art. And then all this 30 meters water resistant. Lots to love. And nostalgic for me, it reminds me of my homeland. This is the Franck Muller Long Island Imperial Tourbillon. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.